Now, the latest property sector market size report by the Property Sector Charter Council shows that the sector in South Africa is estimated to be valued at 5.8 trillion rand. Now, within the sector, fewer than 10% of real estate investment trusts are black originated funds. According to the South African Institute for Black Property Practitioners, it is of paramount importance to prioritise the inclusive growth and radical transformation of the property sector and non-agri land. To tell us more, give us a bit more of an understanding and insight into this, we're joined in studio by Vuyiswa Mutshekwane. She is the CEO of the South African Institute for Black Property Practitioners. Good to have you. Welcome to Morning Live.
Thanks. Good to be here.
That is a massive valuation. It really is. I mean, and we were chatting off air. That includes all property minus agricultural land.
Yes, yeah. So the 5.8 trillion is split up into commercial property at 1.3 trillion, residential property, which is mine, your houses, at 3.9 trillion, state-owned property as well as urban-zoned land at 520 billion rand.
Yeah. I mean, and then we come up with a figure which is basically saying that fewer than 10% of real estate investment trusts are black originated funds. Why? What do you think is the problem here?
Leanne, there are a number of structural barriers, if I may call it that. I mean, there's definitely a close link with the financial services sector and the ability of new entrants to access finance, to be able to participate and transact in the sector. So that's definitely one of the biggest hindrances: access to finance, access to capital. But perhaps on the softer side, there's definitely also a skills and a skills pipeline issue that needs to be addressed. So in terms of creating more awareness for young people to actually enter the sector, to create more black representation and have more professionals actually trained in the sector. I mean, as it stands right now, we only have 3 universities in South Africa that offer property studies. Yeah. So, it's a sector that has sort of flown below the radar for a very long time, and as an organization, it's our objective to create awareness for the sector, create a pipeline of skills in the sector, and then once people are in the sector, create opportunities for them to be able to transact and to grow businesses, and ultimately that's what we want to see.
If we look at the difficulties of actually getting loans, getting bonds on houses, I mean, the more people I speak to, the more difficult they are finding it, is that they just cannot get finance. And I know that that's what you attributed one of the biggest problems to, is the access to funds. Yeah. And when you're young, you do get into debt. It's because you're growing your balance sheet, you're trying to do these things, and yet it seems that everywhere you turn, they're not allowing you to do that anymore.
No, absolutely.
Is this hindering the growth of people in South Africa to be able to own their own homes, own their own properties?
Absolutely. I mean, you've hit the nail on the head. The property sector is one that every single one of us interacts with on some level, whether as an owner or as a tenant or, in a building that you live in. And it is a very powerful socio-economic lever that has the ability to provide people access into the financial markets, and to allow people to build assets and therefore build wealth, So first-time home ownership is an absolute priority, and unfortunately, the way that the financial services sector is currently structured is that it does not. It's almost prohibitive for first-time owners. I mean, just in terms of recent numbers that came out, the average price of a house is 800,000 rand. Yeah. And if you look at the demographics of our country and the earnings in Johannesburg alone, the average The average salary is 4,500 rand. So you start to see a pattern where the numbers just don't add up.
They don't match. I mean, how do you possibly qualify to get a bond on a house of 800,000?
And at which point are you able, as a young black person who perhaps has, incurred some student debt, perhaps is supporting family, at which point are you able to accumulate enough savings to be able to get that 10% deposit that is required of you as a first-time homeowner? So definitely much more participation is required from the financial services sector, and closer, working closer with the property sector to say, how do we enable the process of first-time ownership? How do we ensure that at some point in this country, every individual has equal opportunity and access to own a house, to own a title deed, and therefore be able to have an economic vehicle that they can trade with?
It's almost a vicious circle, because the rich are getting richer. It's like, okay, well, you know, I can afford to get the bond. I will buy the bond. I will rent it to you. I will take your money and I'll just get richer, and you're not getting anything for it, except for this house, but you're not owning anything. And that's something, we need to break that cycle, but it just seems to be getting more and more vicious the more the times turn. It's a very difficult thing. This study, does it include, can we break it down further into actually looking at how many black people actually own the homes that they stay in, as opposed to, as we say, rent them?
So this study, unfortunately, doesn't go into that level of detail. I think that's the next level of the research. So this was the first, actually the second research that has been published by the Property Sector Charter Council. And as you can imagine, a lot of data had to be acquired to even get to this point. What we do know, though, is that of the, you know, within the residential sector, only 3% of estate agencies are black-owned estate agencies.
Okay.
So, and when it comes to estate agents, you know, we're only looking at about 13% of estate agents. 13, yeah. And I mean, just to put it also into some numbers, you know, we're talking about average commissions of around 4 billion rand last year alone, 2016. I mean, this is as per research that came from the Estate Agency Affairs Board. So, you know, there's 4 billion rand that's effectively not making it into the black economy for whatever reasons. And it's really important that we start looking at those structural challenges and saying, why is it that we are not attracting more black people into the sector as you know, practitioners, as estate agents, as commercial developers, as landlords? What are the structural issues that are hindering this process?
And they're great. I mean, there are great opportunities in that sector to go into. Perhaps it's education. Perhaps it's just a matter of exactly what you're doing right now. You're highlighting the point and saying, have you ever considered going into this industry and moving into that? Look, or is there actually a motivated agenda to try and keep black people out of the industry? What do you think?
I think it's difficult to prove or state factually that there's a motivated agenda, and I'd hate to say there is. But I do think that there is an almost lackluster approach towards actually addressing the challenges around transformation. Particularly when we speak about the Property Sector Charter, you know, these are targets that have been set by the industry. So you ask yourself, why is it that the industry sets targets and then fails to achieve the targets, you know, and then we're now reporting on ownership that is tracking below target, management control that's tracking below target, employment equity that's tracking below target. These are targets that have been set by the industry. And why is the industry, after setting those targets, not adhering to those targets or not meeting those targets? And that's really what we need to try and understand. Are we perhaps not really getting to the crux of the issues? And in our attempts to transform, are we getting more new entrants into the industry? And I think that's where the real challenge lies.
All right. Very interesting. I'm going to continue this conversation, if you don't mind. We're going to take a very quick break. There's also the issue of South African land mass and how much land there is, how much is owned by black people, how many owned by white people. And this is a part of the study which we're going to have a look at as well, which I think you're going to find exceptionally interesting. If you can write to us, please do. You know we're willing and we're open and able to take those tweets of yours at Morning Live SABC. That's how you can get hold of us. Please join in the conversation. We'll continue with this after the break. Stay tuned.